Hey there, friends. Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project. This is Huck L. Berry, the executive producer, star of the show. And she knows it. She's getting pretty cocky in her old age. She says, yeah, I know you need me. I know. She says, show my picture. That's what I'm proud of. There you go, Huck TV. And we just got back from a hike. 63 degrees outside, huh, Huck? It was a little warm, wasn't it? Yeah, we had a good time, though. Walked around, saw some deer. Had fun. It was nice to get out in a decent weather. And don't forget, the stars right there will be on the Missing 411 Alaska cruise this September. Go to Gather Up, one word, GATHERUP, Gather Up events. Read all about it. We'll be in Juneau, Sitka, Skagway, Victoria. A town hall meeting in Juneau that will be epic. Yes, you're a good girl. Yes, you're a good girl. Yes, you're a good puppy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're a good girl. Yeah, you're a good girl. Yeah, you're a good girl. Yes, you're a good puppy. Yeah, we're partners, huh? Yeah, you're a good girl. Yeah, it's a good girl. Oh, that's a big yawn. Okay. Getting on with the show now. And yes, you can watch my latest movie, Missing 411 National Parks. That is available on Amazon, Apple TV, and you can rent it now, so it's pretty inexpensive. I ask you one thing. Please, if you've watched the movie, I don't really care what review you put up. Oh, I do. Hopefully it's a good one, but I'm not telling you what to put up. Leave a review on Amazon. That's where everyone goes to review them to decide if they're going to watch. It helps us immensely. Talk about kindness every show. Well, talk about kindness. Some people sent me some things, and I want to read what they said, because I think what they did was a great idea that I wish everyone would do every once in a while. Hey, Dave. We wanted to express our thoughts and prayers for your recent loss of your loved ones. Back when I was much younger, my mother would send us a happy box to help lift me and my brother's spirits, most when we were away at college and homesick. My husband and I decided you also needed a happy box. And we didn't want to leave Huck out, so we found a dog toy called Betty the Yeti. Betty the Yeti. And there's Betty the Yeti. Oh, Huck likes it. Yeah, Huck's smelling it right now. Yeah, that's Betty the Yeti. All the items are for you. The spoon I found at an art show and asked them to put the Hoopa project on it. Now, this I have never seen before, and I thought, this is awesome. Look at that. A soup spoon. And look what's engraved on it. Unbelievable. It's beautiful. I read many of your books with great interest. I'm simply amazed that more people, like the National Park Service and the FBI, don't see a pattern. I wouldn't say they don't see one. I think they see it and they don't want to acknowledge it. Here's the behind the scenes on that. If the National Park Service acknowledges that there's a problem, then they have liability for that problem. If they can claim they had no knowledge of it, there's no liability on their half. I was told this by somebody very high up in the Park Service. The first episode of The Young Lady in the Airplane left me speechless. This is in the Marin County cases. I want to commend you on your documentary on Missing 411 National Parks. Excellent production. You need to make more. I'm not afraid to tell you that that movie took it out of me. Emotionally, physically, took it out of me. And I can't really explain why that one was different, other than Maybe I just aligned more with the people, the victims' families. And I can remember several times sitting across from them and talking to them, thinking, what if I was in their seat? Thought about that several times. It's horrible, horrible. One more important comment. I so respect you for being so transparent about Ben and mental illness. Too many people hate this topic, but no, it needs to be discussed. Hope you enjoy the Happy Box, Tim and Tracy, Minnesota. They also sent this, which is very thoughtful. Huck's coming over now. Huck, you gotta smell it, huh? What do you think, Huck? She's smelling the shirt. Oh yeah, Dad. I like that. And then they sent some stickers, some air freshener. That was kind of cool. And emotional support friends. Emotional support dumpster fire. It's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine. That's good. All right. Thank you very much. And no, you guys don't have to send in anything. Please don't send in anything. I feel guilty when people send me things. But that's not to say that... You know what this reminds me of? This is actually funny. I just had an epiphany. I'm looking at this going, I remember when I was a little kid, my mom would run around with something very similar to this. Dave, get your hands away from your bottom. Oh yeah, God bless you, Mom. I had a great mom. Very lucky to have a great mom, but yeah, that wooden spoon reminded me of that. Okay. Case today. And that's an older case. Don't leave with a happy ending, but very mysterious. This story is in Missing 411 Eastern U.S. Never talked about it before. It involves a young girl named Carolyn Peterson, 20 months old, missing August 20th, 1947, at around 11:30 in the morning. Her mom had last dressed her in a bright orange sunsuit. The family lived on a farm about a mile north of Waldo, Ohio, north of Columbus and north of Delaware, Ohio. Here's the big map. This is Columbus, Ohio right here. And then as you go up on the map, almost exactly due north is Delaware. And then Waldo is right here. Very rural area adjacent to a river and a large creek was their farm. Their father was a carpenter. They were married, husband and wife, 4 kids, Judy 6, Roger 4, Carl 3. They lived in rural Marion County, Ohio. Just for the facts, get it in there. August 20th, on that day, father was working, not at home. And he was 12 miles away in a city called Prospect, working on another family's house. He was a carpenter. The family lived on that property for 4 years. The home sat back on the roadway about 120 feet. At about 10:30 in the morning, Mrs. Peterson put Carolyn in the front yard of their home to play with her 3-year-old brother, Carl. Now, Carolyn, at 20 months, hadn't even learned to talk yet. Keep that in mind. So Mrs. Peterson was working around the house. No kids have ever walked away from the front yard, and it was 120 feet from the main highway out there, so it was a long ways. At 11:30, she comes out, checks on the 2 kids. Couldn't find Carolyn. She searched the yard, then went into the home and thoroughly searched it. She then searched the barn behind the house. Nothing. Now, this was in 1947. Stop there. 1947, 1948 in the U.S., there were a lot of kids that went missing. I covered this in my Missing 411 Eastern U.S. book. It's like something was going on in the U.S. that I didn't understand, and I still don't understand. 47 and 48. Well, the Petersons didn't have a phone. So what do? Well, Mrs. Peterson ran a mile down the highway to Leroy Bender's farm, got a hold of Mrs. Bender, told her what happened, said she needed help. Mrs. Bender called her husband. They got in the car. They drove her back to her house. And then they assisted her in the search and told their farmhand to call more people for help. And while Mrs. Peterson was at their farm, she called her husband at the location where he was at, and he was immediately driven home by one of their ranch hands, a guy named Wilbur Williams. So 20 minutes later, Mr. Peterson arrives at the house, and now there's 6 adults there, and they're searching. And other people were coming who had been called on the phone by these people. Within an hour, there were 12 local farmers arriving to help in the search. Now, kind of the layout of the property is the Petersons had a barn 100 feet south of the home. This was searched several times by everyone involved. 120 feet down their dirt road was their highway. And across from that highway, there was a 10-acre plot of corn. And the corn was very mature, it was high. Now, behind their home, behind the barn, there was a pasture field that was very high with weeds. One of the first things that was done is that Mr. Peterson got into his tractor, and with people standing on each side, and with people surrounding the front and the sides, very slowly went through the field, and they searched it. They were about 6 feet apart to make sure that they didn't miss her. She wasn't there. By 4 p.m., the sheriff arrived on site from Marion County. His name was Leroy Redderer. And he organized the 50 searchers that were now there. Now you got to remember, in 1947, kind of north central Ohio, can't believe that a sheriff would have a lot of experience looking for missing kids. But from everything I could tell, he did basically the right things. Remember, everyone was asked to call somebody before they came. 2 hours later, 6 p.m., they had 100 searchers on scene. Carl, the little boy, was talked to by the sheriff and the dad. Told an interesting story. He said that he and Carolyn were out by the road, and she was on the other side of the road by the cornfield. And she was standing there, and then another car pulled up. He said it was a yellow car, very unusual color for 1947. And then the car pulled away and she wasn't there. Now, this is very broken English for 3 years old. After he told that story, Mr. Peterson and the sheriff both talked and tried to understand if Carl even knew what the color yellow was. And they asked him to pick it out in a room. He couldn't even pick it out. So they discounted the story because his color was wrong, and they just didn't believe what he was saying. Well, the sheriff had put people on that 10 acres of corn. That was the first area that they took half of the 100 searchers, 50 of them walked it row by row, making sure they didn't miss a thing. And they came out of there after a couple hours, nothing. They didn't believe she was ever in there. Well, the other searchers were behind the house, searching the pasture field, and 2 other searchers were searching a river and a creek behind the house. They walked through the middle of the river, which wasn't very deep. They said nothing was there, nothing was in the creek. 10 p.m. that night, many of the searchers left and went home. About the time they were leaving, heavy rains hit the area. A few of the searchers decided to stay through the night, keep calling Carolyn's name, and make sure that if she did call out, they were going to be there. She never called out. The searchers survived through heavy rain. Nothing. August 21st, the day after she disappeared, 200 searchers arrived early in the morning, and they were led by the sheriff and deputies. One of the searchers, 500 feet down their roadway, found an old percolator from a coffee pot. Mrs. Peterson said that that was a toy that all 4 of the kids played with from time to time. And it's possible that they could have walked down the road that far and dropped it off. She's not sure how it got there. It was something they played with. They didn't really think much about it then, or how it got there. It was kind of confusing. Then, that day, a local came forward when they saw the ruckus in front of the land that the Petersons own, hundreds of cars. They stopped by and they found out what was going on, and they told the Petersons that the day that Caroline disappeared, at about the time frame around noon, they saw her walking down the roadway alone several hundred feet from the entrance to their property. Well, that made everyone wake up. They started to think, well, did somebody drive by and kidnap her? What was going on? But they took about 50 of those searchers and they sent them down to that area to scour the roadway on both sides to make sure that she's not in that area. Kukua Creek and the Olentangy River were walked again by several residents who lived in that area just to make sure that nothing washed up, nothing washed away. No tracks on the soft banks of the river, nothing. I found this very surprising, but 2 local residents of the Petersons, Jack Augenstein and Russell Ryder, had airplanes. And they heard that the little girl was missing, and they said that they were going to fly over the property all day looking for her and looking for that bright orange suit that she was wearing. Well, they flew it for the whole day. Both of them saw nothing. Later that afternoon, it was sunny all day the day before, and then in the afternoon, a big storm rolls in, another one rolls in late in the afternoon, and it rains for several hours, got the land soaked. At the end of that day, the sheriff made a statement to the press that was covering this in a huge way. Stated that in 2 days of full searching, they found nothing. And it was his belief, he was starting to believe that she was kidnapped. There's no evidence of a kidnapping, but because of a lack of evidence of her being in that area, he couldn't believe that she was in the area, a 1.5 mile radius from their house, which they had been searching. Late in that day, after the sheriff talked, a fortune teller contacted Mr. Peterson. It's always interesting when I hear these calls because what brings these people out? They stated that they believed that Carolyn was located on the banks of the Olentangy River. And if they hurried, they would find her on the banks of the river. They didn't say she was dead or alive, just on the banks. Immediately when he got that, 20 men went straight out to that river and walked it in the middle of the river and on each banks for the next several hours. Nothing. Now that night, the mayor of Waldo was Reverend S.C. Long, a Lutheran minister. He held a community meeting that night to help raise money for a reward to keep looking for Carolyn. The sheriff came to the meeting and said he was frustrated with the lack of progress they'd made and no evidence at all. Sheriff said that he couldn't believe that he wasn't finding anything, but he also said, or the headlines that night said, a mysterious disappearance struck the heart of the 341 Waldo residents. At the end of the meeting, the reward got up to $2,500. It's a lot of money for 1947. The parents were interviewed by the public and the sheriff that maybe they had enemies and maybe there'd be a ransom note. Well, the Petersons really had no money and they had very little resources, so nobody would think that she'd be kidnapped for ransom. The sheriff reiterated to the press that they had completely and thoroughly searched a 1.5 mile radius from Carolyn's home. August 23rd, same searching goes on. Nothing's found. Frustration gets sky high. Sheriff doesn't even believe she's there anymore. And on the 24th, everything was pulled back, except the bare bones deputies that were working the perimeter, and that was it. Well, that night, when the deputies are still there, at 7:05 p.m., August 24th, a neighbor rancher named Samuel Almendinger was looking for lost cows. Stop right there. If you're a regular viewer, you know that when people start looking for lost cows, weird things happen. They become lost. Cows are never found. It's just a weird dynamic. So anyhow, Mr. Almendinger is on the perimeter of his fence looking for cows. And he walks through part of the fence into a deep briar patch, and he looks over towards the ground, and there's Carolyn sitting on the ground with her hands through the fence. What a sight that would be, in the middle of a briar patch. He jumps the fence, gets her hands out of the fence, picks her up, and carries her back to the Peterson home. He said that her hands were jet black from eating blackberries. He said that her legs were scratched, but really he couldn't tell if anything else was wrong. At this point, Carolyn had been missing for 4 days and 80 hours. Stop that. Now, you and I, we don't drink for 3 days. Good chance you're going to die. 3, 4, 5 days you're dead without drinking. A little child 20 months old doesn't have the reserves in their system that you and I do. How she survived 80 hours on just berries, I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't even know if that's possible. I know there's stories of people, little babies surviving, but that's not the norm. So she was transported to Marion Hospital. Dr. Daniel Murphy reported that Carolyn was in very good condition. What? in the woods for 80 hours, 20 months old, and she's in very good condition? He said she had insect bites and scratches from what looked like briars. He said that he could say that she did not appear to have any injuries from humans. And he said something fascinating. He could find no evidence of sun exposure, even though every day she was missing, until the late afternoon, it was sunny. How's that possible? He also stated that as he was working with her, examining her, that she was grabbing at anything that looked like food. She was starving, he said. The nurses gave her an IV for fluids. The doctor was asked by the press to comment if he believed she was outside for 4 days. He refused to comment. That night, a sheriff's deputy for the sheriff's office came out and spoke to the press. Deputy Edgar Fink. He said the mystery was still wide open because there was nothing to indicate yet whether Carolyn had been kidnapped. He said that she was too young to give any account of where she had been since she disappeared from her yard. He said the briar patch where she was found had been thoroughly searched several times. And he also said that the briar patch was 800 feet from the Peterson home. Well, the primary search zone was from the house out 2,600 feet, plus 5,280 feet. So it was out there over 7,500 feet. But yet, just 800 feet away, she was sitting there. How do searchers miss that? August 25th, she's still in the hospital, and they reported that she's eating ice cream, getting better quickly. Mr. Peterson was interviewed by the press and said, "My daughter is in entirely too good of condition to have been outside for 80 hours. He thinks that she was kidnapped and then returned, as many of you believe on these cases that I talked to you about." August 26th, the hospital said that there had been rapid improvement. In total, she lost 5 to 7 pounds. And for a 20-month-old child, that's a lot of weight. So, important points. First of all, I've said this before, I will say it again. Some criminals are really stupid. But none of the criminals are so stupid to go right back in the middle of a search zone with hundreds of people and drop a baby back off right there. Nobody's that stupid. If they were afraid that the child would be found, all you'd have to do is, that searchers are driving up and down the highway every day, put the child on the side of the highway with a couple of flags there, people are going to see her. No, you can't make me believe that any suspect dropped her off in the middle of that search zone. That dog don't hunt. So there were no witnesses to the disappearance. That's important fact number one. No tracks were found leaving the area. Multiple weather systems moved through that property and it rained on them during that search. A rancher looking for cows finds her with her hands through the fence. This is a picture right before Caroline was released from the hospital. You can see her legs. They said that they were healing up really good. You can see some bruising on her hands, possibly from being through the fence. But in general, she looks in pretty good condition. She's sitting up. She's found in an area that's previously searched 800 feet from the house. She's wearing bright orange, but she's not seen from the air. How is that possible? And I've said this before, I'll keep saying it because you guys will get it. When this happened, the father was not home. How many times does that happen? There's a creek and a river extremely close to the property that's being searched. Water. As in many of these cases, whether it's somebody with autism, whatever, Carolyn couldn't speak. She couldn't explain what happened to her. She's missing 80 hours. Multiple rainstorms. No hypothermia? How's that possible? Explain that to me. And blackberries are involved. Oh yeah, blackberries. Berries are involved in a lot of these searches for young kids in rural areas and forests. How is that possible? Now, her mom did say that she had taken Carolyn out berry picking in the past. And the only thing she could think of is that Carolyn remembered that you could eat the blackberries and she was starving, so she ate them. That's the only thing that they could think of. So, friends, do I think she was kidnapped in the conventional sense? No. Do I think she was in or on that property the entire time? Heck no. There's no way. Because searchers are not that bad. People would have heard her crying. Nobody heard anything. They even stayed out overnight. Didn't hear anything. I think it's a very odd case. And I think it exemplifies many of the points I make in these disappearances. So, if you get a chance, go by missing411.com. That's our new website. Check it out. Going to be in Ocala, Florida later this year, and Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Hopefully I'll see you guys at one of those stops, or I will see you in Seattle for the cruise. Kindness. I want to thank the kind people that sent me the box. And I think sending a box to somebody, that doesn't have to be expensive stuff. It's the thought. It's the thought. Be safe, be kind, be patient, and be appreciative of the help you get from the clerks at stores, banks. Give them a good smile and tell them you're appreciated. Paulides out.